Felix Tito Trinidad versus Oscar De La Hoya, the Golden Boy. Billed as the fight of the Millennium, and a true winner of this fight probably will be debated for a millennium. So I slowed it down, turned off the sound, and got to work analyzing round by round based on the 4 true scoring criteria of boxing to determine once and for all who really won the fight of the Millennium, Oscar De La Hoya versus Felix Trinidad. Let's get started. Round 1, clean punching. In this round, not a lot to pick from, but Oscar De La Hoya did slightly outland Felix Tito Trinidad, 4 clean landed punches to 2. Clean punching, 10-8, Oscar De La Hoya. Effective aggression. Both Oscar De La Hoya and Felix Trinidad were sporadically aggressive, but De La Hoya was more effective since his sporadic aggression made Trinidad react and stop looking for openings, whereas Felix Trinidad's aggression did not change Oscar De La Hoya's approach at all. Effective aggression, 9.5 points for De La Hoya, 9 points for Trinidad. Ring generalship. Oscar De La Hoya set the pace and tone from beginning to end. He was in constant motion at various distances, consistently turning Felix Trinidad to make him reset, and De La Hoya struck a few times, just enough to outland Felix Trinidad. The entire round was on his terms. He actually controlled tone through action. Ring generalship, 10-8, De La Hoya. Let's talk defense, and here are all the defensive moves done in this round to avoid punches and when they happened. If we categorize them, I gave the high guard to De La Hoya, ducking to De La Hoya, bobbing and weaving 9 points to both fighters, parrying 8 points to both fighters, blocking to De La Hoya, footwork to De La Hoya, and clinching 7 points to both fighters. If we take the 4 scoring criteria together, the algorithm gave 8.267 points to Felix Trinidad and 9.667 points to Oscar De La Hoya, a blowout in round 1, 10-9 for Oscar De La Hoya. And as we go through the fight, I'll be comparing my running score to that of the 3 official judges at ringside. They are Glenn Hamada, Jerry Roth, and Bob Logiste. Glenn Hamada gave that round to Oscar De La Hoya, Jerry Roth gave that round to Felix Trinidad, and Bob Logiste gave 10 points to both fighters. Drop a comment below about what you think about tied rounds like that. I'd love to hear your opinion. Round 2, clean punching. In this round, a bit more of a disparity. Oscar De La Hoya lands 10 clean punches to Felix Trinidad 6. The running total in the fight thus far, 8 for Felix Trinidad, 14 for De La Hoya. Clean punching, 10-9, Oscar De La Hoya. Effective aggression. Felix Trinidad was measured in his aggression, but Oscar De La Hoya was even more measured. However, De La Hoya's constant movement and circling made Felix Trinidad's aggression fairly ineffective in the sense that it didn't make De La Hoya change anything. On the contrary, although De La Hoya was sparingly aggressive in the places where he was at 114 and near the end of the round, they did cause Felix Trinidad to change his approach. Effective aggression, 9 points to both fighters. Ring generalship. Although Felix Trinidad was a little more successful in landing punches than in round 1, Oscar De La Hoya controlled action and tone for almost the entire round. He initiated a constantly moving approach, and Felix Trinidad was never able to pin him to the ropes, corner him, or otherwise take control of the action. He was also outlanded by De La Hoya, especially toward the end of the round, despite all the movement. Ring generalship, 10 points for De La Hoya, 8.5 for Trinidad. Let's talk defense, and here are all the defensive moves done in round 2 to avoid punches and when they happen. If we categorize them, I gave high guard to De La Hoya, ducking to Trinidad, bobbing and weaving to Trinidad, parrying to De La Hoya, blocking to De La Hoya, footwork to De La Hoya, and clinching 7 points to both fighters. If we take the 4 scoring criteria together, the algorithm gave 8.769 points to Felix Trinidad and 9.476 points to Oscar De La Hoya, a comfortable win in round 2 for Oscar De La Hoya, 10-9. And I now have the fight 20-18, Oscar De La Hoya. Glenn Hamada gave that round to Felix Trinidad and has it 19-19 a draw. Jerry Roth gave it to Felix Trinidad as well and has it 20-18 Felix Trinidad. And Bob Logiste also gave that round to Felix Trinidad and has it 20-19 Felix Trinidad. Round 3, clean punching. In this round, Oscar De La Hoya outlands Felix Trinidad 9 clean landed punches to 6. The total in the fight thus far, 14 for Felix Trinidad, 23 for Oscar De La Hoya. Clean punching, 10-9, Oscar De La Hoya. Effective aggression. Oscar De La Hoya was not aggressive at all in the first minute as he moved all around Felix Trinidad. Trinidad looked feverishly for openings and started imposing his aggression in the second minute with mixed effectiveness. Oscar De La Hoya dominated effective aggression in the third minute by suddenly introducing the double jab, which to Felix Trinidad's credit, he only let De La Hoya land the first time, and with multiple effective aggressive flurries that slowed Trinidad down. Effective aggression, 9.5 for Oscar De La Hoya, 9 points for Felix Trinidad. Ring generalship. Oscar De La Hoya controlled action and tone for 2/3 of the round. The first minute, where he defended very well and didn't allow Felix Trinidad, who was proverbially chomping at the bit, to find almost any opportunities, and the third minute, where Oscar De La Hoya turned on the effective aggression. Ring generalship, 10-9, Oscar De La Hoya. Let's talk defense, and here are all the defensive moves done in this round to avoid punches and when they happened. If we categorize them, I gave high guard to De La Hoya, ducking to Trinidad, bobbing and weaving to Trinidad, parrying to De La Hoya, blocking to De La Hoya, footwork to De La Hoya, and clinching 7 points to both fighters. If we take the 4 scoring criteria together, the algorithm gave 8.886 points to Felix Trinidad and 9.638 points to Oscar De La Hoya, a 10-9 round for Oscar De La Hoya in round 3. And I now have the fight a shutout, 30-27 Oscar De La Hoya. All 3 judges at ringside also gave that round to Oscar De La Hoya. Judge Glenn Hamada has it 29-28 De La Hoya, Judge Jerry Roth has it 29-28 Felix Trinidad, and Judge Bob Logiste has it 29-29, a draw. Round 4, clean punching. In this round, Oscar De La Hoya outlands Felix Trinidad 13 clean-landed punches to 5. The gap is widening, De La Hoya with 36 clean-landed punches in the fight to Felix Trinidad's 19. Clean punching, 10-8 Oscar De La Hoya. Effective aggression. At 46 seconds, an inadvertent rabbit punch by Oscar De La Hoya. Felix Trinidad only had maybe 3 times in this round where he was able to get to Oscar De La Hoya in any meaningful way that disrupted what he was trying to do. He was trying unsuccessfully to corner him. On the other hand, Oscar De La Hoya was a bit more aggressive in this round than in the previous rounds, but still switched among standing in front of Trinidad to build tension, punching aggressively, and moving around the ring. His aggression was certainly effective in momentarily stopping Trinidad's momentum, though. Effective aggression, 9.5 points to both fighters. Ring generalship. That was cool at 1:17 on the clock, where they both hit each other with a jab to the head simultaneously. Take a look at it in this screenshot here. Oscar De La Hoya controlled action and tone again in this round, though. He lured the anxious Felix Trinidad into great counter-punching and stopped and started the offense at will. When Felix Trinidad tried to press the action, he was more often than not met with a crisp jab to the head. Ring generalship, 10-9, De La Hoya. Let's talk defense, and here are all the defensive moves done in this round to avoid punches and when they happened. If we categorize them, I gave high guard to De La Hoya, ducking to Trinidad, bobbing and weaving to Trinidad, parrying to De La Hoya, blocking to De La Hoya, footwork to De La Hoya, and clinching 7 points to both fighters. Using the 4 scoring criteria, the algorithm gave 8.690 points to Felix Trinidad and 9.638 points to Oscar De La Hoya. Another 10-9 round in round 4 for Oscar De La Hoya. If we take a look at that running score, I now have the fight 40-36 Oscar De La Hoya. All 3 judges at ringside gave that round to Felix Trinidad somehow. Glenn Hamada now has it 38-38 a draw, Jerry Roth has it 39-37 Trinidad, and Bob Logiste has it 39-38 Trinidad. Round 5, clean punching. In this round for reals, I couldn't find a clean punch that Felix Trinidad landed. Oscar De La Hoya landed 13 of them. The total in the fight thus far, 49 for De La Hoya, 19 for Trinidad despite his aggressive trying. Clean punching, 10-7 Oscar De La Hoya. Effective aggression. Trinidad knocked De La Hoya's glove into his face twice, but I didn't count those, of course, because they're not clean-landed punches. He also just ever so slightly missed at 109 as Oscar De La Hoya was moving backward from it. Oscar De La Hoya used strategic aggression and was effective almost every time in keeping Felix Trinidad off balance and in hitting him with many sharp punches. Felix Trinidad attacked periodically, but was largely ineffective as De La Hoya's distance control was superb. Effective aggression, 10 points for Oscar De La Hoya, 8.5 for Felix Trinidad. Ring generalship. Oscar De La Hoya is doing a great job of beating Felix Trinidad to the punch when Trinidad initiates. De La Hoya's punches are shorter and faster, and he lands before Trinidad can. De La Hoya dominated action and tone with in-and-out motion, side-to-side motion, and landing a bunch of punches while making Felix Trinidad either miss by a millimeter or by many millimeters. Ring generalship, 10 points for Oscar De La Hoya, 8.5 for Felix Trinidad. Let's talk defense, and here are all the defensive moves done in this round to avoid punches and when they happened. Categorizing them, I gave high guard to De La Hoya, ducking to Trinidad, bobbing and weaving to Trinidad, parrying to De La Hoya, blocking to De La Hoya, footwork to De La Hoya, and clinching 7 points to both fighters. Taking the 4 scoring criteria together, the algorithm gave 8.036 points to Felix Trinidad and 9.771 points to Oscar De La Hoya, a blowout in round 5 in favor of Oscar De La Hoya, 10-9. And I now have the fight 50-45 Oscar De La Hoya. All 3 judges at ringside also gave that round to Oscar De La Hoya, how could you not? Glenn Hamada has it 48-47 Oscar De La Hoya, Jerry Roth has it 48-47 Felix Trinidad, and Bob Logiste has it 48-48, a draw. Round 6, clean punching. In this round, Oscar De La Hoya outlands Felix Trinidad again, 12 clean-landed punches to 5. I haven't found a round so far where Felix Trinidad has outlanded De La Hoya. The running total so far, 24 punches for Felix Trinidad in the fight, 61 for De La Hoya. Clean punching, 10-8 Oscar De La Hoya. Effective aggression. Oscar De La Hoya was more effectively aggressive in the first minute, with Felix Trinidad not accomplishing much. Then De La Hoya made it impossible for Trinidad to find him in the second minute via movement. Then De La Hoya turned on the effective aggression again in the third minute. Effective aggression, 9.5 for De La Hoya, 8.5 for Felix Trinidad. Ring generalship. Oscar De La Hoya seems great at picking up on patterns. His first two landed punches looked like he missed on purpose to get Trinidad to bob, and then kept his fist close to the head to catch Trinidad's bobbed head where it was going to be. Oscar De La Hoya switched strategies twice and Felix Trinidad couldn't do much about it. De La Hoya controlled action and tone for the full round. Ring generalship, 10 points De La Hoya, 8.5 points for Trinidad. And here are all the defensive moves done in this round to avoid punches and when they happened. If we categorize them, I gave high guard to De La Hoya, ducking to Trinidad, bobbing and weaving to Trinidad, parrying to both fighters, blocking to Trinidad, footwork to De La Hoya, and clinching 7 points to both fighters. Taking the four scoring criteria together, the algorithm gave 8.393 points to Felix Trinidad and 9.524 points to Oscar De La Hoya, a blowout round in round 6, 10-9 for Oscar De La Hoya. And I now have the fight 60-54, Oscar De La Hoya, still a shutout. All three judges at ringside also gave that round to Oscar De La Hoya. Judge Glenn Hamada has it 58-56 De La Hoya, Judge Jerry Roth has it 57-57 a draw, and Judge Bob Logiste has it 58-57 Oscar De La Hoya. Drop a comment below now at the half point of the fight here how you had it. I know that those last 3 rounds in this fight were controversial because it said that Oscar De La Hoya really shut it down, but at this point halfway through, how did you have it? Let me know in the comments. Round 7, clean punching. In this round, another big disparity. Oscar De La Hoya outlands Felix Trinidad cleanly, 18-7. The running total in the fight, 79 for De La Hoya, 31 for Trinidad. Clean punching, 10-8, Oscar De La Hoya. Effective aggression. Felix Trinidad spent the whole round trying to find Oscar De La Hoya, who was constantly turning him, and put on a brilliant display of his own aggressive stick-and-move technique. Oscar was simultaneously out of the way and landing many more sharp punches through targeted aggression, while Trinidad was constantly resetting and unable to get into any aggressive rhythm until a couple good landed punches near the end of the round. Effective aggression, 10 points for De La Hoya, 8.5 for Trinidad. Ring generalship. Oscar De La Hoya controlled action and tone from beginning to end again. Felix Trinidad defended well, but not well enough. He was hit a lot and could rarely find a way to get into punching range. Oscar De La Hoya controlled distance, nullified almost everything Felix Trinidad tried, and started and stopped the action at will. Ring generalship, 10 points De La Hoya, 8 points Felix Trinidad. Let's talk defense, and here are all the defensive moves done in this round to avoid punches and when they happened. If we categorize them, I gave 9 points to both fighters for high guard, ducking to Felix Trinidad, bobbing and weaving to Felix Trinidad, parrying to Oscar De La Hoya, blocking to both fighters, footwork to Oscar De La Hoya, and clinching 7 points to both fighters. If we take the 4 scoring criteria together, the algorithm gave 8.248 points to Felix Trinidad and 9.686 points to Oscar De La Hoya, a blowout round in round 7 for Oscar De La Hoya, 10-9. And I now have the fight 70-63, Oscar De La Hoya. Glenn Hamada and Jerry Roth both gave that round to Oscar De La Hoya as well. Glenn Hamada has it 68-65 De La Hoya, and Judge Jerry Roth has it 67-66 De La Hoya. Judge Bob Logiste gave that round to Felix Trinidad and has it 67-67, a draw. It's interesting to me how a judge can have this fight a draw where I have Oscar De La Hoya totally running away with it at this point. Let's move on to round 8, clean punching. Oscar De La Hoya outlands Felix Trinidad in round 8, 13-5 for a total of 36 in the fight for Felix Trinidad and 92 for Oscar De La Hoya. Clean punching, 10-8 Oscar De La Hoya. Effective aggression. Again, Felix Trinidad tried to press the action and landed a few, and I mean few, good punches, but spent the overwhelming time in the round fruitlessly trying to find Oscar De La Hoya, who was a perpetual motion machine. Trinidad missed quite badly in some spots because De La Hoya was no longer there. Oscar De La Hoya landed many good punches between all the movement and was much more effective in his aggression. Trinidad had constant, mostly ineffective pressure, and De La Hoya had precise aggression in spots. Effective aggression, 9.5 points to De La Hoya, 9 points to Felix Trinidad. Ring generalship. Oscar De La Hoya punched or moved whenever he wanted, and although Felix Trinidad managed to try really hard and land a few punches, he was mostly being turned the whole time and totally controlled by Oscar De La Hoya's action and tone. Ring generalship, 10-8 Oscar De La Hoya. Here are all the defensive moves done in this round to avoid punches and when they happened. If we categorize them, I gave the high guard to De La Hoya, ducking to Trinidad, bobbing and weaving to Trinidad, parrying to De La Hoya, blocking to both fighters, footwork to De La Hoya, and clinching 7 points to both fighters. Taking the 4 scoring criteria together, the algorithm gave 8.352 points to Felix Trinidad and 9.610 points to Oscar De La Hoya. Round 8 of the fight of the Millennium, 10-9 Oscar De La Hoya. And I now have the fight still a shutout, 80-72 Oscar De La Hoya. Judge Glenn Hamada gave that round to Felix Trinidad and has the fight 77-75 Oscar De La Hoya. Judges Jerry Roth and Bob Logiste both gave that round to Oscar De La Hoya. Judge Jerry Roth has it 77-75 De La Hoya, and Judge Bob Logiste has it 77-76 De La Hoya. Round 9, clean punching. In this round, Oscar De La Hoya decimates Felix Trinidad, 22 clean landed punches to 8, for a total in the fight of 114-44. Clean punching, 10-8 Oscar De La Hoya. Effective aggression. In short, I gave effective aggression to Oscar De La Hoya's blinding combinations over Felix Trinidad's constant stalking pressure. Trinidad seemed to be forcing De La Hoya to get a little uncomfortable for at most 40 seconds of this round. De La Hoya was up 15 clean-landed punches to 1 at one point in this round. Effective aggression, 9.5 De La Hoya, 9 points Trinidad. Ring generalship. This is a classic case of Felix Trinidad controlling more action and tone than in previous rounds, but not more than Oscar De La Hoya in this round. He did have a couple prolonged periods of success, but De La Hoya's periods of success were longer and involved landing many more sharp punches and elusive defense. No matter how hard Felix Trinidad stalked and tried to trap Oscar De La Hoya, he wasn't able to actually do it for the most part. Ring generalship, 10-9 Oscar De La Hoya. Here's all the defensive moves done in this round to avoid punches, and if we categorize those, I gave high guard to De La Hoya, ducking to Trinidad, bobbing and weaving to Trinidad, parrying to De La Hoya, blocking to both fighters, footwork to De La Hoya, and clinching 7 points to both fighters. If we take the 4 scoring criteria in round 9, the algorithm gave 8.586 points to Felix Trinidad and 9.610 points to Oscar De La Hoya. Another blowout in this round in favor of Oscar De La Hoya, 10-9. And I now have the fight 90-81. Oscar De La Hoya still haven't found a round to clearly give Felix Trinidad. Judge Glenn Hamada gave that round to Oscar De La Hoya and has it 87-84 De La Hoya. Judges Jerry Roth and Bob Logiste both gave that round to Felix Trinidad. Judge Roth has it 86-85 De La Hoya, and Judge Logiste has it 86-86, a draw. Round 10, clean punching. This round was actually very close. Oscar De La Hoya barely outlands Felix Trinidad 15-14. The total in the fight, 129 for De La Hoya, 58 for Felix Trinidad. Clean punching by the slimmest margins, 10-9 Oscar De La Hoya. Effective aggression. Much is made about Oscar De La Hoya taking the last 3 rounds off in this fight because he thought he was ahead, but the fact of the matter is that although De La Hoya became a little more hittable and landed only single punches in this round, Felix Trinidad also suddenly became much sharper and able to impose his aggression on De La Hoya to land his fight-high number of punches. So I think a bit more credit has to be given to Felix Trinidad for, although late, starting to actually turn it on and make the difference in this round. Effective aggression, 10-9, Felix Trinidad. Ring generalship. As Oscar De La Hoya perhaps tired and slowed down just a notch in this round, while still landing a good number of clean punches though, Felix Trinidad was able to find him off and apply a pressure tone and drive the action more. Oscar De La Hoya was still quite competitive, but I edged this category to Trinidad by a slim margin. Effective aggression, 10-9, Felix Trinidad. Here are all the defensive moves done in this round to avoid punches and when they happened, so if we categorize those, I gave the high guard to De La Hoya, ducking 10 points to both fighters, bobbing and weaving to Trinidad, parrying 7 points to both fighters, blocking to De La Hoya, footwork to De La Hoya, and clinching 7 points to both fighters. If we take a look at the 4 scoring criteria together, the algorithm gave 9.357 points to Felix Trinidad and 9.271 points to Oscar De La Hoya. A very razor-thin slim margin, but this is the first round I am giving Felix Trinidad 10-9. And I now have the fight 99-91 Oscar De La Hoya. All 3 judges at ringside gave that round to Felix Trinidad. Judge Glenn Hamada has it 96-94 De La Hoya. Judge Jerry Roth has it 95-95 a draw. And Judge Bob Logiste has it 96-95 Felix Trinidad. Round 11, clean punching. In this round, Felix Trinidad finally outlands Oscar De La Hoya, 15 clean landed punches to 9, really turning it on toward the end of the fight as Oscar De La Hoya is slowing down a bit. The total in the fight, 138 punches for De La Hoya and 73 for Felix Trinidad. Clean punching, 10-9, Felix Trinidad. Effective aggression. Felix Trinidad was the more effective aggressor throughout the round. He was able to more successfully chase down Oscar De La Hoya with consistent aggression and get himself into position to land substantially more punches, especially the straight right hand. Effective aggression, 10 points for Felix Trinidad, 8.5 for Oscar De La Hoya. Ring generalship. Felix Trinidad took control of the pressing action and aggressive tone as he was able to land more consistently now that Oscar De La Hoya is focusing more solely on defending and less on punch flurries. De La Hoya must have used a lot of energy to do what he did in the previous rounds to shut down Trinidad, but now Felix Trinidad is able to take control when there's less coming at him. Ring generalship, 10-9, Felix Trinidad. And here are all the defensive moves done in this round to avoid punches and when they happened. If we categorize them, the high guard goes to De La Hoya, ducking to Trinidad, bobbing and weaving to Trinidad, parrying to De La Hoya, blocking to both fighters, footwork to De La Hoya, and clinching to both fighters. Having a look at the 4 scoring criteria, the algorithm gave 9.629 points to Felix Trinidad and 8.810 points to Oscar De La Hoya. Round 11 is a 10-9 round for Felix Trinidad. And I now have the fight 108-101 Oscar De La Hoya. All 3 judges at ringside also gave that round to Felix Trinidad. Judge Glenn Hamada Hamada has it 105-104 Oscar De La Hoya, Judge Jerry Roth has it 105-104 the other way for Felix Trinidad, and Judge Bob Logiste has it 106-104 for Felix Trinidad. Let me know in the comments below how you had it going into the final round. I'd be very interested to know your opinions. Round 12, the final round. Clean punching. In the final round, Oscar De La Hoya doubles the clean landed punches of Felix Trinidad 14-7. Clean punching, 10-8 Oscar De La Hoya. Effective aggression. Felix Trinidad was aggressively pressing hard for the whole round but couldn't find Oscar De La Hoya that often. He was very aggressive but only somewhat effective since De La Hoya would turn his head at the last moment and make punches miss, or just simply escape before Trinidad could begin an attack. De La Hoya, on the other hand, wasn't aggressive very often, buzzed around Trinidad like a bee, and got in sharp pot shots when not expected. He didn't ever have enough aggression to deter Trinidad from his approach though. Effective aggression, 9.5 Trinidad, 9 points De La Hoya. Ring generalship. Felix Trinidad controlled the pressing, stalking, chasing tone, but Oscar De La Hoya was a perpetual motion machine, flying all around him like a bee and stinging often enough to outland him 2-1, thus controlling the action. Trinidad tried so hard to press the action, but De La Hoya was often uncatchable. Ring generalship, 9.5 points to both fighters. Let's talk defense, and here are all the defensive moves done in the final round to avoid punches and when they happened. If we categorize them, I gave 8 points to both fighters for high guard, ducking to Trinidad, bobbing and weaving to De La Hoya, parrying to De La Hoya, blocking to De La Hoya, footwork to De La Hoya, and clinching 7 points to both fighters. Taking the 4 scoring criteria together, the algorithm gave 8.721 points to Felix Trinidad and 9.331 points to Oscar De La Hoya. In one of the 3 rounds where so many people said Oscar De La Hoya just ran away, he actually and technically won the round by a comfortable margin by all of the 4 criteria that matter, 10-9. And now the moment you've all been waiting for, the moment we reveal Felix Trinidad versus Oscar De La Hoya. Who really won the fight of the millennium? And the answer is, Oscar De La Hoya blew him away according to the criteria that matter, 118-110. This fight wasn't close, despite what some super fans of Trinidad may have you believe. And of course, that begs the question, were any of these rounds close enough for me to overturn and possibly give them to Felix Trinidad? Well, let's have a look. Round 1 was a blowout for De La Hoya. Round 2 was a comfortable win for De La Hoya. Round 3 was a comfortable win for De La Hoya. Round 4 was a almost blowout for De La Hoya. Rounds 5 and 6 were blowouts for De La Hoya. Round 7 was a blowout for De La Hoya. Round 8 was a blowout for De La Hoya. Round 9 was a blowout for De La Hoya. Round 10 was very close, but I already gave that one to Trinidad. Round 11 was comfortable for Trinidad, and round 12 was comfortable for De La Hoya. So the answer is no, there are no rounds close enough to overturn, except maybe round 10, which would go to De La Hoya and make this an even bigger blowout. So the score stands: Oscar De La Hoya 118, Felix Trinidad 110. So let's have a look at how the official judges at ringside scored this fight. Judge Glenn Hamada gave the last round to Felix Trinidad and ended up with 114-114, a draw. Judge Jerry Roth gave that last round to Felix Trinidad as well and ended up with 115-113 Trinidad. And Judge Bob Logiste gave that last round to Oscar De La Hoya correctly and ended up with 115-114 Felix Trinidad. So I'm sorry, none of the 3 judges today get the award for getting the closest to the actual score of what this fight should have been if you're judging who really won. Felix Trinidad versus Oscar De La Hoya, they were all way off, with Judge Glenn Hamada being the closest with a draw. Some interesting statistics at the bottom of the screen. The highest number of punches landed by Felix Trinidad in any round, 15. By Oscar De La Hoya was 22. The minimum number of punches landed in any round was 0 by Trinidad and 4 by De La Hoya. The average per round for Felix Trinidad, 7. For Oscar De La Hoya, almost double, 13. And the total number of punches I saw clearly land were 80 by Felix Trinidad and 152 by Oscar De La Hoya. So in closing, the fight of the millennium, Oscar De La Hoya versus Felix Trinidad. Was this a robbery? Yes, in every way. They gave it to the wrong fighter, and in my opinion, using the 4 scoring criteria of actual boxing scoring, it wasn't ever close. In fact, Oscar De La Hoya didn't even lose all 3 of the last rounds. He won the last round. So now you know who really won Felix Trinidad versus Oscar De La Hoya, the fight of the millennium. Make sure to drop a comment below on how you had this fight. I'm sure there's going to be people on both sides of the scorecard here. And if you like these detailed round-by-round breakdowns, whether you agree with the results or not, but enjoy the detail that goes into scoring the right way, make sure to subscribe now so you don't miss the next Who Really Won breakdown. And speaking of that, appearing on your screen right now are 2 links. One of them is another Who Really Won detailed breakdown that you can click to watch right now, and the one on the right is a detailed discussion of how I score my fights so you can learn to score like a pro. Thanks again, and we'll catch you again next time.